saw in the invitation, we have sort of 101 is today, 201, remember college, 101, 201. 201 is going to be next, is going to be in March, and we're going to talk about some investing and some of those kinds of things. Today we're actually going to go internal and say what are some of the things that we can do to sort of improve our lives, some of which will be financial related, some of which won't be. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff. And I want to say, before I get started too deep in, I want to say thanks to Eric and thanks to the GTU. This is LinkedIn at work. I was in school here 20 years ago, 18 years ago, and follow on LinkedIn. And he was like, we're going to do this event, and who should we find to do the event? And he found me there because I follow them. So go online and follow people you're interested in, and they might give you a call and say, please speak in front of people for us. So it's great. So our topic is the Happiness Dividend. What do you think about the subtitle? This is the first time you guys have seen this? It's been up the whole time. Okay. No, it's, I'm actually in the middle of a book, and that's my title. And if there wasn't really like a, wow, that's a great title, so I'm going to have to change the title. You like it? Okay, thank you. So we'll dig right in. I mean, today will be a lot of the basics. And some of it, and actually honestly, some of it will get boring, I'm guessing. Got a lot of good stories in the beginning that'll make it exciting and fun. And then towards the end, it'll start to drag a little bit. But hopefully we'll be able to keep it going. Yeah?
I've always been told you don't need wealth for happiness. So I came to find out.
That, you know what, it's so, there's actually research, there's tons of research done on this topic. And what they say is once you get to about $60,000, $70,000 of your income, $60,000 or $70,000 a year of income, above that, it doesn't add happiness because you've got all the basics in place, right? And we're going to touch on a little bit. So I think you're right. I don't think it does take that. So I want to tell you a little bit why I'm here. And this, I've actually never told the story, and I probably will never tell the story again because this is the only group, GTU is the only place where this story will be interesting. So I went to school here, as I said, and when I went to school, I was married at the time, and at the time it was, well, she still is my first wife. She'll always be my first wife. But when 3 years into it, I was working on finishing my thesis, and she said, okay, Jonathan, my turn to go to school. You've been going to school a long time, you know, my turn. So so I stopped, and I never graduated. So I was hoping that Richard Payne would be here, who was my director of the Institute of Buddhist Studies. So I would ask him, could I come back? Because I had to sign a letter saying, I'm not going to try to come back. But anyway, so she said, right? So she said to me, it's your turn. So I went to work. But I was halfway through, or 2/3 of the way through, a degree in religious studies. So I didn't finish it, and it was religious studies. Not a job for that, right? So I had to dig in. I had to figure out what to do next. And if you go backwards from there, there's something that makes me different, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And the thing that makes me different is when I grew up, I bought my first stock when I was 9 years old. So the conversation around the dinner table at my house were things like tax rates. We talk about this. But my dad would quote Shakespeare, and my mom ran a preschool. So we're very family-oriented. You know, we read together a lot. We didn't play video games. We played board games all the time. But and I just found this out a week and a half ago, literally after this presentation was designed. She raised intentionally a financial planner. And I found this out by, I said, you remember when you taught me how to set the table? And she said, yeah, I remember. I did that intentionally. She purposefully showed me the ties between my activities as a 5-year-old, taking the silverware, walking to the table, putting it on the table in the right way. And that taught me a certain kind of relational math that somehow developed over that one and over the next thing and over the next lesson to me being a financial planner. So the second book is going to be how my mom raised a financial planner. We'll see how that turns out. Financial concerns are global. People are worried about this everywhere, and it doesn't really change where you are. Most people feel unsuccessful when it comes to money, and they're very consistent. All these different countries, doesn't matter what continent you're on, the vast majority of people feel unsuccessful. If you go through time, maybe 10 years ago we got to this point in terms of information. We learned things, and now there's just so much, right? And we get fed all day long, every day. You sit at your computer, Yahoo will just spin out headlines for you. And there's no context for it when it comes to financial headlines. We don't, can you see? So there's no good way to take that information in and digest it, because the first lessons we learned about money, we learned at our parents', our grandparents' knees. So a little experiment. How many folks here are 55 or older? Okay, a third of the room. So your parents, did they experience the Great Depression? Okay. So did their experience of the Great Depression, when you were 1 and 2 years old, sitting at their knee, listening to their stories, did their experiences teach you anything? Did you hear stories, and did you take out, thoughts about the way the world of money works? And I would say that the vast majority of the people that are in the baby boom generation, the story that they enter the world with, without knowing they enter the world with the story, is negative around money. And so I was raised in South Dakota. One of the things we did for fun, this is enjoyment, is go to the mall. Right now, I look at that as absurd. And one of the lessons that I teach people is don't do that. Shopping is not fun, right? Shopping is, you got to get new shoes, you go get new shoes. It's a simple thing. But these are the lessons that kids, when they're young, they learn that, oh, this is a pastime that one can do to enjoy. They learn sometimes that you don't price compare. You just buy whatever. Some kids get allowances, and they don't put any value on that. Parents throw money at their kids because they don't have time to throw at their kids. So this is a huge problem. So these lessons that we learn when we're young around money affect how we treat money and how we think about money as we're adults. So did you know they had a cash register? They don't have a cash register at Dexter Hardware? The old dude just adds up your order on the paper bag. He's fast as lightning. He's always right. I blew 3 weeks' allowance on random screws just so I could watch him. Then I went to Burger Bunker for the university by the university for lunch. Their computers were down. The whole place came to a standstill. I believe I learned something from it all. That math is cool? No, the Burger Barn hires humanities majors. Right? So the point here is we have nothing in our educational system at all. But I took a 1-quarter course in junior high. So I'm, 13 years old? And it was home ec. And I'd learned how to cook escargot, something I've never done since. I learned how to make a pillow, which is very impressive to my wife. I learned how to sew buttons, and I learned how to balance a checkbook. So that's what I remember from that class. But that was literally the only thing that my education taught me about money, was how to balance a checkbook. And I ask students at Cal, young kids, how many people have credit cards? How many people have checkbooks? They all have them, but no one has any idea what they're doing with them. No one has any idea how to balance their checkbook. So there's nothing quality education. So what we rely on are those stories we got when we grew up. And then you end up with, how do we make decisions? At the base of your brain right here is sort of the leftover reptilian brain. And the concept of fight or flight, that's right here. Every piece of information that comes through every part of your body starts there. It goes there first. And then you have a response to that information. And if this part of your brain thinks that it needs to go up here, it comes to your frontal cortex. And your frontal cortex helps you consider and think and weigh and measure and wonder, what should I do? So when you're walking down the street and, I'll use my wife as an example. I love my wife, so this is okay. You're walking down the street and you go by a shoe store, and she says, I like those shoes. If she just goes, oh, and she goes in and gets the shoes, then that's an expense, and maybe she comes home and she goes, why did I get the shoes? And then she'll go home and take them back, right? So we are driven to make financial decisions without having any thought process involved in it, just because we respond to fear and greed with our reptilian brains. The same is true when we're investing, right? And how many people here are younger than 40? Okay, another third of the room. I'm guessing everyone else is between 40 and 55. So if you're younger than 40, you haven't really given a lot of thought to your financial plan, more than likely. I do have a couple clients that came in at 35 and were like, oh, I got to start saving. But it's rare. Usually it's about 50, 55 people start getting worried about money. But if you don't plan or think about these things ahead of time, then you end up subject to that emotion. And you end up, if you don't have any kind of education about how markets work and how you spend and how you save and why those things are important, you end up just shooting from the hip. You know, every decision is one that's reptilian brain, reptilian brain, reptilian brain. You've got to have it come forward into the frontal cortex. You can think about it. So we're going to try to make sure that happens. And then this is the last reason. Media and Wall Street. Okay, Wall Street manufactures products. That's what they do. And they want to manufacture the product that's most interesting at the time. So, and this is sort of inside baseball. In 2009, that's when my desk got flooded with, hey, we have a new fund that's designed to be defensive. Not 2007, before everything fell apart. 2009, after everything fell apart. Why? Fear was in the streets. So now they could sell that product and raise money and create sort of fee revenue for themselves. Okay? Wall Street manufactures product to answer the psychology of the moment. Okay? And the media flames the psychology of the moment. Because, is anyone here in media? Okay, good. Bad news is good copy, right? If you talk to anyone that writes headlines, if you have a pop-in headline, you get more eyes, you get more advertising dollars, you get more people to listen. So you mix Wall Street, listening to the psychology of the moment, and the media, fanning the fire of whatever psychology we're dealing with. You get all this meltdown and everyone panics. So we need a shift to create this happiness dividend. And I think there's three. These aren't behaviors. These aren't things you do. These are things you are. You have to have faith. I'm at the GTU, so I have to be careful. I'm not talking about a God faith. I'm not talking about a Christian faith or a Jewish faith. I'm not talking about faith religiously. You have to have a belief that tomorrow's going to be okay. Otherwise, why would you exercise? Why would you eat right? Why would you save? Why would you have kids, right? So we do all these things sort of automatically because we're human and this is what humans do. But you have to actually have the faith and then build the faith. So I actually recommend meditation, and I learned that here. I recommend spending time alone thinking about stuff. And so when we get to the first chapter of this, we're going to start talking about how you build that and what kind of thoughts you have to have and what you're going to focus on. So that'll be our first segment. So faith is the first thing, and it's really the most important thing. If you don't have belief in the future, that you need to develop that somehow. That's the number one thing you got to have. Because the future, all of our history goes to tell us the future is going to be better than the past. All of our history says that. Our last 2 years is 3 years, 4 years, miserable. But more people come out of poverty, more people, and we have issues, but the trajectory is a known entity. But you have to believe that. You have to see it and do the research, and you'll come up with that as well. Second thing, you have to have patience, right? Because it's not going to be over. Has anyone ever tried to teach a dog to do this? This is not a picture of my dog. I couldn't get my dog to do this. My dog would bite my hand. You have to be able to wait patiently for your faith to come to fruition. You have to have a belief of what's going to happen. You have to be able to wait for that to happen. What does that take? Resilience. Because it's going to get hard. I mean, there's going to be reasons to not wait. There's always good reasons to not wait. I don't have this in this presentation, but there's a chart that just kind of goes through every moment in time what's going on. It goes back 100 years. This president's assassinated. We have this war. We have this other thing. We have this financial collapse. This one, and every 2-3 years there's some massive thing that happens. There's always a reason to be scared. And Wall Street's always going to develop a product to save you, and media's always going to fan the flames for it. It doesn't go away. You have to have patience. And the last thing is you have to have discipline. This is the hardest one for me to talk about because this sets your success or failure in a financial world at your feet, right? No one else's fault. So that's difficult for me to stand up here and say, because there are things that affect us. There are things that get done to us. But then the question is, how do we respond to those things? Does our faith go away, or can we keep that faith? All right. So we have 4 segments. Today we're going to go through make and save. And these are simple. These are financial things, right? Make money, save money, plan, and grow. Mike Van Horn's going to get up in a minute, and he's going to talk about it's almost a business plan. It's a way to take your intellect, your creativity, and turn it into a revenue stream, an income stream. And in today's world where everything's transparent, everything is open, and there's Google, and there's Amazon. There are tremendous opportunities to use your intellect and creativity to turn it into an income stream. So this isn't go get a job, slave away, right? This is think about it. Maybe there's another way to do it. But first I want to start with, within Make, we're going to talk about blueprinting first. So that's this. So I do this every 2 years. I've done this every 2 years for 6 years. So I've done this 3 times. Not a lot. Has anyone here set goals before? Okay, there's a few goal setters. I didn't think there was going to be that many.
Well, depends what you mean by goals. And
well,
how much wiggle room there is.
Yeah, well, no, right. When I set a goal, I think about a 50% chance of hitting the goal. Right? I'm not setting goals I'm going to hit all of. That's just a way to pat myself on the back if I do it that way. But so in the blueprinting, we're not going to set goals first. First, we're going to think about values. So right here on the first page, and we're not going to go through it all today. It takes me, when I sit down and do this, it takes me hours and hours and hours to do it. So does anyone know who Simon Sinek is? So go listen to a TED Talk. Simon Sinek. And what he talks about, do you know what TED is, by the way?
Yeah.
TED.com? Okay. This is what he calls the golden circle. And the golden circle is why is at the center, then how, then what. And what he says is when you compare Dell to Apple, the reason Dell is not as successful as Apple is because Dell says, hey, we build good computers, want one? Whereas Apple says, we believe that computers are difficult, we want to make them easier, have a great interface, make it fun, make it more beautiful, make it fun to touch. We make good ones, you want one. Right? He starts with why. And he said, in conclusion of his talk, what he says is, Martin Luther King gave the I have a dream speech. That's why everyone followed him. There were other people at the time, right, that were phenomenal leaders in that area. But he was marquee. Right? He had a dream. He had lots of followers because of that. Now, so what does this have to do with us? So we have to start with our why. We have to start with what it is we want to do, what it is we want to have, what it is we want to accomplish, what it is we want to be. And if we start there and we build on that, everything else is a lot easier because that gives us the focal point when things get hard. Because things are going to get hard, we know that. So we first talk about identifying the values. And I guess after you go past the cover page, in the third page, you get this. And instead of going through the exercise, I highly recommend people go through the exercise and from beginning to end. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you mine, because this is my it's laminated. It's on my desk at work. I read this every day. One would think I have it memorized. Truth be told, I don't read it every day. But it's there, and I do look at it often. And in fact, I'm trained that when something has got me down, I'm nervous about something, I'm worried, I go back to here. Yahoo News is not where you go, right? Because that's just going to make you more nervous. But these are my 6 most important values. This is what's important to me personally. I stand firmly in my belief that family, achievement, a positive supportive attitude, health, lifelong learning, and generosity are the keys to a successful life. Now, if you read that, whatever yours is, if you read that to yourself every day, life can't be that bad, right? Something can happen to you, and it will be dwarfed by the consistency of this message. And so you can kind of see there's a list of ideas, right? There's a paragraph, not a paragraph, just generosity dash, adventure dash. These are concepts. There's a lot of other concepts. Any word you can think of can go here. So the idea is you write down a bunch of words, you rank them in order of importance. Then you ask yourself the question, how much time am I committed to these? How much time do I actually spend on these things?
Yeah,
and
let me see how that's going to turn.
Exactly. It's not the first time I did it, it didn't turn out the way you'd think. These are things that are important to me, but I spend 0% of my time walking, going to the gym, whatever. Health is important, but I don't do anything about it. Well, that's when you go, okay, my life has to shift. Right? And this is the first part. What is the purpose of life? Wow, there's an answer to that. It's the same answer as to the question, what's the square root of a tomato? That's a stupid question. Exactly. There isn't a purpose to life. What is your purpose? Right? What is it that will make you get up in the morning? And that's the next thing we have here. Spend some time to figure out what your meaningful purpose is. We're on this page right here. Discover meaningful purpose. It's the second page of it. It starts with the question, are you committed to finding the meaningful purpose in life? If so, what's happened in your life now to make you ready? Why is it right now? Why is now different than yesterday? And then it asks you a dozen questions. But what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? What should that be? When you feel empty and directionless, what's missing? And number 8 is, I'm a GTU. This has to be here. How are you nourishing your soul spiritually? And this is one I deal with. My wife was raised half Catholic, half Jewish, which meant she was raised with nothing. I mean, they didn't go to any services. I was raised Lutheran and became Buddhist, which means I don't really do anything either. And I think it's really critically important that my kids are raised with something. But we discuss this all the time. So this 9th question, is your spouse, significant other, supportive in the desire to more fully live your meaningful purpose? And she's very supportive of that, but then you get into the details. Should we take our kids to church or the synagogue or temple, or what do we do? And we get into the details. We disagree a lot. You got to work it out. So discover that meaningful purpose. Critical element. Okay. And you go through these questions, and at the end, you have this page right here. You answer a bunch of questions, you think about it, you go through it, you take some more notes, you keep writing down some additional notes. And with that, you can until you get that aha moment, that, that's what it is, that's what my purpose is. And there's no amount of time I could spend up here talking about it. You have to actually go through the process, ask yourself the questions, and write down the answers and think about it. You have to, I was building a space in my house, a meditation space in my house, and I had a teacher who told me that, and this has been told to me before, for dream chronicling, you have to have a nice leather-bound volume. You can't have a spiral-bound book and put it next to your bed and wake up and maybe write in it, because you're not honoring your dreams, right? If you're going to write down and actually consider your meaningful purpose, you have to actually treat it with respect, right? It's a big deal. You have to take the time. And it's hard to do, but it's absolutely worth it. And it's worth it because once you have that vision, once you know that purpose, once you know that direction, nothing can derail you. So at the end of this, we're going to get to goals, and we'll talk more about that. So here, all right, the next step is you take that meaningful purpose and you develop a vision. What are you? This is you. Which one is you? They're both you, okay? Right there. So I'm just going to read. I'm going to read this. There's a sample compelling vision right here, and it says, you know what? I'll read mine. Okay. Publicly. Okay. I wake up refreshed and enthusiastic every morning, full of love for my family and friends and a passion for life. I'm a husband my wife loves and is proud of. Wow. And a father my children love and respect, and a friend that people count on. My family is financially secure, physically fit, and emotionally close. We are active centers in our community. We live in a beautiful home with serene and tranquil grounds on a quiet street in Berkeley. Our home itself is light, open, and oft visited by friends and family. Pictures of my family's special moments line our walls. See, it creates an emotional thing. It really does. The sound of our children and our friends can be heard much of the time. And so the idea is you build in family, you build in your office. My office is systematized. My 4 team members, highly motivated towards the success of our business. They are well compensated and inspired to handle the office and systems perfectly, even in my absence. The space is professional, comfortable, modern, art on the walls. My days are spent helping people around me reach higher than they thought they could. I do this by meeting my best clients, guiding them in reaching their dreams and aspirations, and communicating my knowledge, experience, and faith through public speaking, community involvement, and leadership. DeYoe Wealth Management produces, and this is crass, but I'm going to say it anyways. DeYoe Wealth Management produces $2.5 million in annual revenue, which allows me to place $500,000 into our family foundation. It means every year we add $20,000 to our family's annual gifting program. For enjoyment, I golf, spend time with friends and family. This is an older one. I don't golf anymore. My wife and I travel with our kids, spend time in Tahoe, and are active in the community in which we live. When I go to bed at night, I sleep soundly with the knowledge that I live today to its fullest, and with the belief that the world's a little better than when I awoke. So what you get out of that is you get what you just saw, right? You get an attachment to something that you believe in. Most of that's not true. I mean, it's absolutely true, it's in my heart, but that's not my life, right? I don't have a place in Tahoe. I don't travel the world with my kids yet. I'm not there, right? I'm developing to that. I don't have a family foundation yet. We're building, we're going to get there. And I have absolutely no doubt that I get there. So that's what I mean when I say we're setting goals. And to set the goals, you have to get the compelling vision, you have to know your purpose, okay? The comment is, it's striking that I have no reservation about getting there. And so, yeah, I don't even know how to comment on it other than to say that I think it's there for everyone. And I think that I've done a lot of work in terms of, I started 18 years ago here trying to figure out what it all meant. Didn't find answers, right? I think we go forward, and I have done all the research. I do know that it gets better all the time. In terms of the big picture, it gets better all the time. We're on a phenomenal trajectory. And I know that if you put in the work and you do the effort, and it can happen for everybody. Anyone can stand up in front of a group of people and speak. You just have to spend the time doing it and practicing it. It's hard. It's like people are afraid of death, taxes, and public speaking. That's really the way it goes. Here we have setting goals. And this process, we do the visioning piece and the compelling piece every year, every couple of years. This I do on a very regular basis. I constantly review goals. Because goals, I get beat on goals, right? Sometimes my goals don't come true. And sometimes I'm not there yet. So I've got big goals, and what we have here is we've got 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year goal structures. And the idea is you set up your goals, you write down a goal, how you achieve it, and what is your reward for getting it. And that reward piece is critical, because if you don't feel the benefit of getting the small things right, then you're not going to have the stamina to get through to the big things. So you've got to be able to reward yourself for little goals. And I have stories that I don't want to share with people that just pop into my head that I have to share because they pop into my head. So, wow, this is the last time I was. Okay, we'll do it. So I was a wow. Okay, I wet my bed till I was older than I should have. Okay, so how do we? Wow. So how do we get past that, right? So my mom was like, try this. They attached me to a alarm, and they wrapped the bed in rubber and did all kinds of things to make me more aware and all this kind of stuff. This is difficult. And ultimately what it was is, Jonathan, we're going to go to the ice cream store after 4 days, and then it's after 6 days, and it's after 10 days. And it was just the little successes drove me to no longer do that. Okay.